Mike Flanagan released another dark series on Netflix. While the show follows the downfall of the House of Usher, the biggest mystery surrounds the architect of the Usher's demise, Verna. Who is Verna, or what is she? Like my other videos, this will be a summary and analysis of the entity that is known as Verna, but I will also attempt to piece together a theory about what Verna is and what she is after, so spoilers ahead. So let's start at the beginning, and by that I mean the meeting between Verna and the Usher twins. The night of the meeting is spread throughout multiple episodes, so I will try to summarize and break down the night here, because a lot of details are revealed about the entity known as Verna. Here is a recap of the night. A quick aside before I do, I'll keep referring to Verna as a woman and with female pronouns, but it should be noted that Verna is not a woman. She's not even human. But whatever entity Verna is does seem to prefer to choose this female form when dealing with humans. Roderick and Madeline Usher first meet the mysterious Verna on December 31st, 1979. They have come to the bar after killing Rufus Griswold in an attempt to create an alibi. When Roderick and Madeline sit down at the bar, Verna immediately begins to pour 2 whiskeys. She asks if they would like gin rickeys, to which Roderick declines, but Madeline orders 2 whiskey neats instead. Verna completes the whiskey pour and hands it to them. I think this is a really neat detail. She already knew before they did what they would order. This is such a subtle but poignant way to demonstrate Verna's ability of clairvoyance. Verna is a great conversationalist and has an easy and casual way about her, but her casual demeanor is juxtaposed with her very astute observations and loaded questions, asking them why they switch parties and commenting on Roderick's dirty hands. Verna knows what the sibling has done, but is simply playing with them. She loves to talk to people and is deeply fascinated by their choices and answers, hinting that while she may be clairvoyant, she chooses not to force people into doing what she wants. We will see exceptions to this when she can force people if she chooses, but this does not seem to be her preference. She seems to be more of an orator who influences people with words and suggestions. What truly fascinates her is the person's response. She then begins her proposition for a deal early on in the conversation, with subtle suggestions, first asking if they wanted to start a bar tab, so that they can buy now and pay later, a huge foreshadow of the entire show. Throughout the night, Verna will interact with the siblings separately and then together. There is a taxidermy of a raven sitting atop the bar, looking down at the patrons. This is symbolic of Verna, for the raven serves as the inspiration behind her character and is a direct homage to Edgar Allan Poe's most famous writing titled The Raven. We will come back to this later in the video. Roderick mentions the raven, saying that some people sees them as demons, since Noah threw them overboard and yet they still survived. Verna says that not every culture sees them that way, and that some people believe that ravens bring good fortune. She proceeds to read Roderick's palm, and points out to him that his life is about to change that very night, hinting at the life and world-changing offer she is about to make. With Madeline, Verna asks what she wants. Madeline is her usual condescending self, but Verna remains unfazed, and in fact seems to unnerve Madeline herself. But Madeline does respond, saying that she wants to be rich, and to never have a man have power over her, and to live forever. Verna calls Madeline a queen without a crown, and nicknames Madeline as her Cleopatra. The two share a kiss at midnight, leaving Madeline rattled. After midnight, the siblings sit down to share drinks with Verna. She asks them what they would give if they could achieve all the success they could ever imagine. All the power, money, luxury, and comfort. What would they be willing to give in return? Verna reveals that she knows the truth of why the siblings have come to the bar that night. She knows that they have just killed Rufus, and that they have only come for an alibi. She assures them that if they take her deal, they would basically get away with murder. In fact, they would get away with any crime they would commit in the future as well. No legal consequences guaranteed. She also reveals their future, that Roderick, or Madeline, will soon become CEO or COO, or vice versa. They are free to rule the company however they choose. They are not forced to do good or evil. Verna says that she just wants to see what they would do. This exchange is interesting, for it still leaves room for Madeline to be CEO if she chooses, again hinting at the choice and free will. Madeline is skeptical and hesitant, but Roderick is immediately intrigued. Verna says something interesting, quote, "You feel it, both of you, in the air. We're sitting outside time and space. This is the moment luck meets opportunity." While this might be figurative, it could very much be literal. They might be outside of time and space. As we will see throughout the show, Verna is a being of great power, able to change the fabric of reality. She could very much be creating the bar in some sort of pocket dimension for the purpose of meeting the twins. Roderick asks for the price, to which Verna tells him that it can be deferred. Have the next generation pay for it instead. In return, for all that Verna can give, the Usher bloodline must die just before Roderick does. Verna's other major stipulation is that Roderick and Madeline must die together. She assures them that Roderick will live for a long time. In fact, she promises that he will live longer than any Usher man has before him. But she is quite adamant, for the sake of symmetry, that the twins must die together. Keep in mind, at this point, Roderick already has 2 children, so he is essentially sacrificing Frederick and Tamerlane right then and there, with 4 more children yet to come. Verna coaxes Roderick and assures him that his descendants will live a shorter but gilded and privileged life. Roderick immediately agrees, followed by a more hesitant Madeline. Verna asks for a verbal acceptance before she seals the deal with a drink. She pours Henri Gâteau du Dugnon Héritage Cognac, a very expensive drink costing around $2 million in today's money, saying, quote, "You drink this on the best day of your life or your last night on Earth." When the siblings leave the bar, it mysteriously disappears, becoming just a wall with graffiti on it. Interestingly, there is a graffiti of a raven with something that resembles a crown near the top of its head, again adding to the evidence that she created the bar in some sort of pocket dimension for the sake of the meeting. There is a medieval legend of Faust, a man who made a contract with the devil. In exchange for ultimate knowledge and worldly pleasures, he gives the devil his soul. This type of exchange will come to be known as the Faustian Bargain. Verna's deal with the Usher twins has a very strong similarity to this legend. However, Verna does state that she's not interested in having their souls, even stating that no such thing exists. So what is she after? Well, it seems like stated before, she just wants to see what the Usher twins will choose. It is quite clear that an entity with so much power can do almost anything. So why make these types of deals with mortals? In my personal opinion, I think she finds that these interactions with mortals are entertainment. Humans fascinate Verna, and she toys with them, seemingly for her amusement. She can at times be very tender and rather intimate with humans, hinting at affections for humanity. In her dialogues with humans, she usually communicates respectfully and seems genuinely interested in their responses. So while Verna seems to be a being with godlike powers, she does seem endlessly fascinated and curious about humans. But like the Faustian legend, once a deal is made, it is unbreakable. Verna is of course an anagram of Raven. With this show being a homage to the writings of Edgar Allan Poe, it is no surprise that Raven, or Verna, would be at the center of the story. So what is the symbolism of Raven to Poe? Well, in the author's most famous work, The Raven seems to be a personification of grief, death, and loss. Ravens also have connotations to death, for they are carrion birds that have been known to feed on the dead, and their black feathers helps add to the idea that they are tied to death. In the poem, the raven repeats "nevermore" constantly as a reminder of the speaker's loss of his beloved Lenore. The raven continues to invade the speaker's house and enters his private chambers, refusing to leave the speaker alone, driving him mad. This is different, but has some similarities to the show. Verna seems to take the form of the raven, but she also takes the form of other animals and pretends to be different characters as she interacts with the ushers. So she's more of a shapeshifter, but she chooses the raven as a preferred symbol. She also wears a mask that alludes to the raven and begins to haunt Roderick. A mark of the raven is also left at the bar where the deal was made. Similar to how the raven taunts the speaker in the poem, Verna haunts Roderick by appearing to him in her raven mask and her raven form, a constant reminder of his mortality and loss, but also a reminder of the deal Roderick has made with her, letting him know that the bargain is coming to an end. As mentioned before, the raven was mentioned by Roderick in the bar, to which Verna mentions that the raven is a symbol of fortune in other cultures. I think this hints at the raven being more a sign of inexorable fate and fortune. In Greek mythology, ravens were associated with the god Apollo, the god of prophecy. They were messengers of gods in the mortal world. Interestingly, the raven plays a huge role in many mythologies of different indigenous people along the Pacific Northwest coast, serving as a god, a creator god, but one that is also known for being a trickster. In Haida mythology, the raven was a bored god who, in boredom, discovered and freed the first men trapped inside a clam. The raven was entertained by these new creatures, but soon grew bored. But soon the raven finds other creatures trapped in the chitin and frees them as well, discovering the first women. The Raven was further entertained as the first men and the first women interacted. The Raven, also known as a trickster, was responsible for pairing the humans, but also served as a protector. Personally, this is closer to how I come to view Verna, a godlike or god entertained by endless machinations of humanity. With godlike powers, Verna is more interested in personal human choices and allowing those personal choices to branch out into huge changes. We see the negative consequences that come from Roderick's choices. His climb to fame and fortune is littered with dead bodies. As Verna mentions, he is one of her top clients in terms of kill count. His seemingly individual choices have grave ramifications for the world. Roderick's granddaughter, on the other hand, Lenore, created positive changes for the world. Her action to defy her father and family in saving her mother led to millions being saved. I think this is at the heart of why Verna makes these deals and takes on what she calls clients. She wants to see what people will do when given the option, and she is an immortal, omnipotent being and can watch those choices play out and can fully grasp how profound each choice is. In that way, I see Verna as a god or a godlike figure more interested in human consequences, a witness and an explorer of humanity. As Verna goes about concluding her business with the Ushers, we can see how she operates. When she deals with each of Roderick's children, she seems to take on performances, adopting different personalities and accents, but she doesn't take the form of other people, by which I mean that she doesn't seem to change her face. I think this is deliberate, for she wants Roderick and Madeline to know that she has come back and is here to complete their bargain. She isn't hiding from pictures or videos, even though she can clearly manipulate them, or can at least manipulate perception or reality itself. We see this when Napoleon takes a picture of her holding the black cat. He sees her with the cat, but after his death, when Madeline, Roderick, and Arthur look at the picture he has taken, they see Verna holding a large rat. Verna also seems to offer each of the Usher children's options of a more peaceful departure, giving them opportunities for a calmer end. They still will die, but the circumstance of their death could be negotiated. In a way, it is like the destination is set, but the path can either be rocky and difficult, or it could be sunny and breezy. Except, of course, with Frederick, who out of the Usher children is not given an alternate route. We will get back to him in a minute. With Prospero, Verna advises him to stop the party, warning him that he is about to take a very consequential path that will affect a great number of people. Here she talks about how he is a result of Roderick and his mother's tryst, and that seemingly inconsequential decision that was made at the time, in turn created him, and he, in turn, will be a great consequence to a great number of people. Prospero does not heed her advice and continues with his plans for the sprinkler gimmick. Interestingly, however, Verna does warn the staff, compelling them to leave with her words. She also gives Morel a chance to leave before the sprinkler goes off, but she decides to stay. Again, she gives people choices, but does not force people into direct action. Except for, of course, Frederick. After the mayhem, Verna returns to collect Prospero with a kiss, showing a level of affection, calling him a beautiful boy. With Camille, Verna advises her not to enter Victorine's lab, to Camille's annoyance. Once inside the lab, Camille is cornered and confronted by Verna, who is curious as to why Camille hates Victorine so much, considering how much the two half-sisters are actually very much alike. She also comments about human cruelty, saying, quote, "I love how deliciously pointlessly mean you lot can be." Again, not an outright admonishment, but more commenting on her fascination with this side of humanity, like almost another flavor that she gets to savor. Before collecting Camille, Verna does tell Camille that she was right about her hunch on Victorine, and the chimps almost as a closure for her. She also mentions how Camille's end could have been different, hinting that it did not have to be so violent, and that this ultimately isn't personal. To Camille's credit, out of all the Ushers, she does face her death head-on, saying, quote, "Fuck it, I got mine," and taking a picture of Verna, who has now turned into one of the test chimps, which then proceeds to pummel Camille to death. With Napoleon, Verna takes the guise of a kindly animal caretaker. She does tell him that he cannot adopt the cat, because there are already multiple applications for the cat, urging him to rescue other cats instead. But Napoleon basically bribes his way to getting the cat, saying to the cat, quote, "You little fucker, you saved my life." Very ironic, since he has just chosen his mode of death. Napoleon has also overindulged in sex and drugs, and seemingly never suffers any consequence for it. So in this way, Verna is allowing him to choose his own guillotine. When the Black Cat begins to hunt Napoleon, he begins to lose his sanity, becoming obsessed with killing it, culminating in his own death when he falls out of a balcony. The Black Cat seems to be another familiar or form of Verna, similar to the Raven and the Chimp, again highlighting her powers and shape-shifting abilities. With Victorine, Verna takes on a more passive role, only taking the guise of the perfect gullible patient, as a means to tempt Victorine into making morally corrupt decisions, which ultimately leads to her own downfall. It is not clear how much Verna really is involved with Victorine in terms of how her story plays out, other than tempting Victorine. Most of what happens is Victorine's own actions and obsession with success that leads her into insanity. Perhaps the chirping and ticking noises are sent by Verna, but this isn't quite made clear. It could just be manifestations of Victorine's guilt for murdering her lover, Alessandra. It is almost like Victorine was already on the edge, and Verna just gave her a little nudge. Verna does say to Victorine, quote, "You are so out of touch with your human side, you can't even listen to anything outside your own head." With Tamerlane, Verna is a lot more active and personal, even playing a role in Tamerlane's sex life, taking the guise of a call girl and role-playing as Tamerlane by having sex with Bill, then showing up again in one of Bill's workout videos. Verna is taunting Tamerlane, seemingly appearing as illusions, replacing Tamerlane and living her life during pivotal moments, driving Tamerlane crazy. Tamerlane experiences time skips seemingly due to her exhaustion and insomnia. Tasks or routines are being done without her recollection. However, it could be that Verna is taking over her body for small periods of time to slowly drive her closer to insanity. This culminates in Tamerlane ruining her big Goldbug event after seeing Verna pretending to be her. Back at home, Tamerlane begins to destroy all her mirrors after seeing Verna in her reflections. Verna continues to taunt her, but as Tamerlane's end comes to a close, Verna does urge Tamerlane to try for a moment to take a breath before the inevitable, again mentioning that this is nothing personal. I think using the reflections in the mirror is Verna's ironic way of killing Tamerlane, as Tamerlane is obsessed with her own company, her own image, and ultimately herself. So having Tamerlane cause her own death using her own reflections is a poetic end. Verna does seem to pity Tamerlane, but collects her like the rest. Next and least of the siblings is Frederick Usher. With Frederick, Verna takes a very active role and seems to relish this collection. She also states herself that she usually doesn't take on such an active role, but has made an exception with Frederick. She does this after Frederick decides to remove Morel's teeth. She commands Frederick to take the paralytic he was using to dose Morel, and puts it in his own cocaine bag. Here, there are no suggestions, no taunts, no conversations. She just compels him with a command to do so. Once paralyzed, Verna then poses as Frederick, mimicking his voice for the demolition to begin, again taking a very active role in his death. Verna then mentions that she could have planned his death in many ways, a heart attack, a bus, but she chooses this because what he had done. Frederick removing Morel's teeth with the pliers influenced Verna to the point where she felt compelled to have him end this way, a slow, drawn-out death. She also mentions that in an alternate life, Frederick would have been a good dentist, and that somehow that makes it all the more worse, hinting that she either sees other timelines, universes, or different possibilities, but Verna does have a sense of morality and her own personal modus operandi. In response to his own actions, Frederick is slowly sliced to death by the pendulum. Next is Lenore, who is the exception of all the Ushers. In a complete contrast to her father, Frederick, Lenore is collected by Verna in a very peaceful, quick, and reverent way. Verna is for the first time saddened and upset when she has to collect someone. Before she does, however, she tells Lenore, quote, "There's a lot about my job I love, but there are moments like these that bring me no joy. I hope you know that." She tells Lenore about the future, how Morel would make a recovery and start a foundation that would go on to save millions. Verna gives comfort to Lenore, telling her that her single act of bravery of saving her mother and defying her father will eventually lead to all those lives being saved. Verna then simply puts her hand gently on Lenore's forehead, killing her painlessly and instantly. I think what is interesting is that she calls what she does her job, like this is a role that she has either chosen or been given. But she approaches her role in a professional manner, sometimes doing things she personally doesn't enjoy, or having to do things that are not personal regardless of morality or personal feelings. Throughout the show, Verna has been making her reappearance known to the twins. She is signifying to their deal's impending conclusion. The photographs Arthur was able to find of Verna with other influential people shows that she's been making these types of deals with other people all over the world throughout history. This trail of photographs is fairly easy for Arthur to uncover, and shows that Verna is not really operating in the shadows. She's doing it quite openly. She can take any form or manipulate reality, but she makes her presence pretty obvious for those who are looking for her. She also wants Madeline and Roderick to come find her, leaving clues like her photographs and the driver's license with their childhood address for them to follow. Madeline does indeed follow her to the Usher's childhood home. Madeline demands a renegotiation of their initial terms, but Verna refuses. Verna calls Madeline out for her coldness and stunted heart. Madeline immediately snaps Verna's neck. Of course, Verna reappears unharmed and quite nonchalant, not even upset with Madeline, even apologizing to Madeline for setting her off, showing that Verna stays cordial and respectful even after somebody may try to harm her, for she's so powerful that it would be impossible to do so. Verna tells Madeline that Madeline is one of her favorites. She also tells her that she sees who Madeline was, who she is, and who she could have been, all three at once, and that seeing them breaks her heart. She admires Madeline's tenacious spirit and strength, but this is one deal that can't be renegotiated. Verna does say to Madeline that she is a witness of pain, and that she sees that Madeline is in pain, but Verna states that she cannot take that pain away. Verna comments on how, in another life, Roderick would have been a poet, saying that Roderick is like her, in that they both share an understanding that language in its highest expression is musical. She offers Madeline some clarity in the form of a poem. Verna recites Edgar Allan Poe's The City in the Sea, a poem about decay of a city ruled over death. My interpretation is that this is clarity for Madeline, that the downfall of the House of Usher is an inevitable end to their empire. Nothing can be done to avert this truth. Madeline has been running from death all her life, putting her hopes and resources into her projects to achieve immortality, but ultimately this is a folly. For death is inevitable, and all their efforts really only led to the ruination of the House of Usher. The clarity offered by Verna is that death is certain, which Madeline still refuses to accept. This is the last time Verna speaks to Madeline, for Verna simply vanishes. Madeline, in response, tries to break the deal. She convinces Roderick to overdose on the Ligadone, hoping that if he dies first, the circumstances will void the agreement, since Verna says that the twins will die together. Of course, as stated before, Verna intervenes, saving Roderick's life. She then proceeds to admonish him for all his negative influence all over the world, the millions of lives that he's ruined. She then scares him using his guilt of the bells from Rufus's jester bells to taunt him. Verna will continue to haunt Roderick at his children's funeral by wearing the mask of the Raven. She then takes the form of a raven to look down upon him as he collapses after being haunted by Rufus in the jester costume. The last time Verna speaks to Roderick, she comes to him at Fortunato's headquarters. She again confronts him on his actions and impresses on him the amount of death and destruction he has caused in the world. She shows him bodies of millions of people that he's killed with Ligadone. She compares the millions of dead bodies as his own pyramid, like the ancient pharaohs. His eternal legacy will be one of death and despair. And then she tells him that their deal is coming to a close. She instructs him to call Auguste Dupin to meet him at his childhood home before disappearing. This is the last time they talk before Roderick and Madeline kill each other at the house. Of course, this too is most likely with Verna's influence or intervention, since Madeline seemingly is able to come back from the dead after being not only poisoned, but mummified. This of course mirrors what happens to the twins' parents, with their mother too rising from the dead to strangle their father. This mirroring reminds me of something that Verna had said to the twins when they were making their deal. Verna says that she likes symmetry. It makes me wonder if Verna too was involved with the bizarre circumstances that led to the twins' mother rising from the dead. Was she behind that incident? If so, did she do all this to lead the twins eventually to her? It would not be out of character for Verna to plot something like this, since we already know that she plans in terms of decades and is immortal. She may have designed the twins' life just so that she can have a further exploration of her own designs. To summarize, I view Verna as a curious god who toys with mortals. Verna makes deals with people and gets to see the paths they take. She's also able to see the alternate paths they could have taken, in another life, as stated with her conversation with Madeline. But Verna, as powerful as she is, does not force mortals directly, of course with exceptions. She is beyond human morality, neither good nor evil. Verna simply sits back and watches humanity play out. She's greatly fascinated with human cruelty and pain. This is apparent by her reactions to the Ushers. She at times intervenes to get innocent people out of harm's way, as seen with the waitstaff at Prospero's party. But she also allows the sprinkler to go off anyways, harming others. She admonished Roderick for killing and harming millions, but is also the power behind what made it all possible. Like she says, she is a witness of pain. When humans are inflicting death and pain against one another, Verna simply sits back and watches. Verna also has favorite mortals like Madeline. When the two talk, Verna is respectful to Madeline, quite differently to how she talks to Roderick, hinting that she holds the sister in higher regard to the brother. With Lenore, Verna is even compassionate and allows Lenore to a peaceful death, even letting her know before she dies that Lenore's life had a profound net positive in the world, unlike the rest of her relatives. I think one conversation that was especially illuminating was with the Usher's family lawyer, Arthur Pym. After she toys with him and entertains herself by letting him kill her, Verna invites Arthur to sit down for a chat. She compliments him for his work, saying, quote, "You're beautiful at what you do." She even said that she had been looking forward to talking to Arthur, even apologizing for toying with him. Verna then talks about how humanity as a whole has the ability and resources to end things like starvation, poverty, and disease, but instead choose to do other things instead. This fascinates her. She talks about all the secrets and horrors Arthur saw on his Transglobe expedition, to which Arthur says that he believes that humanity is a virus. Verna, in response, says, quote, "But you're so damn interesting. That's why I had to go topside. I had to see the ships go by with my own eyes. And you saw me too, didn't you?" She then begins her proposition to Arthur, saying that the Ushers are about to fall, and that she can make him a deal. Verna asks Arthur what he has to leverage in order to make a deal with her, but Arthur respectfully declines, saying that he could never let anyone have power over him, and would like to continue to live without leverage. Verna respects Arthur's response and thanks him. She places a tender hand on the side of his face, saying thank you, and that it's been a pleasure, before disappearing. In another scene where Roderick is talking about Arthur Pym, Roderick says, quote, "He told Tammy the world was hollow, and that he found an island at the top of the world, that he called Ultima Thule, and that this was a realm of beings who lived beneath us, out of time and out of space." This has a link to what Verna said a long time ago at the bar, when she makes the deal with Roderick and Madeline. She tells the twin that in that moment, they are sitting outside of time and space. I don't think this is a coincidence, but a major hint that is left that corroborates Arthur's telling of Ultima Thule. In her talk with Arthur, Verna also mentions coming topside to see humans, and that Arthur saw her above the glacier. This could mean that Verna is indeed from this mysterious underground island, and that she is indeed a being that exists out of time and space. In Latin, Ultima Thule translates to the highest degree attainable, or the farthest point in any journey. So Arthur's long expedition of the world and humanity led him to Ultima Thule, a place that Verna seems to have emerged from. So with these clues, my theory is that there is indeed a hollow located at the North Pole that leads to the underground island where godlike beings dwell. Verna is one of these beings, and has come to explore the world out of curiosity and fascination, offering deals to mortals to observe the human condition. Verna operates on her own moral code, sometimes intervening to save innocents, and sometimes to punish those who displeased her. But overall, she operates behind the scenes. She wants to see and experience human consequences, brought about through free will and opportunity, letting her deals play out and watching them unfold. Of course, she comes to collect on her deals personally, becoming a very active agent, but through the many decades with the Ushers, Verna has seemingly just vanished and was completely undetected by the twins. So much so that the twins convinced themselves that she wasn't even real. Verna loves to interact with humans and seems to cherish tender moments with specific humans, though she finds fascinating or especially appealing. Verna seems to hold Arthur, Madeline, and Lenore in high regard. While Arthur and Madeline do awful, terrible things, I think that Verna respects their strength as individuals with their own convictions and beliefs. Conversely, Verna seems to have a disdain for people like Frederick, who are unsure of themselves or are cowardly. As for Roderick, Verna seems to pity him. She really doesn't show him the same respect that she shows his sister, his granddaughter, or even his lawyer. In the closing scene, Verna appears at the Usher's family plot to place some remembrance of each Usher on their grave. I think what's noteworthy is that she does give Lenore a remembrance in the form of the raven's feather with white roses. She places it on Lenore's tombstone with extra care. Verna is offering a small part of herself to Lenore's grave, a feather, a great sign of respect for a godlike entity to leave a small part of themselves for a mortal. Verna then transforms into a raven and takes flight, on to her next deal with another mortal. Thank you to anyone who's made it this far and to the end, and I just wanted to thank all my viewers for the kind support and comments that you've showed me. I'm so sorry this video took so long to make and that I've kind of disappeared off of YouTube. My personal and professional life got really busy, but I still want to make some videos, so again, I apologize for the delay. Thanks again for sticking with me, and if you do like the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave comments. I think what really keeps me going with YouTube is your comments. You guys are so kind and have such cool insights in things that I didn't even think about. So thank you again, and see you next time.